Hello and welcome to Insight. Under attack from the opposition, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj told Lok Sabha on Thursday that she had not extended any favours to former IPL chief Lalit Modi. She said she had only helped his ailing wife on purely humanitarian grounds, and if that was seen as a crime, she was ready to undergo any punishment. Swaraj, whose ouster is being demanded vigorously by the opposition, leading to a deadlock in Parliament, made the emotional statement amid thumping of benches by the ruling party members and in the absence of boycotting members of Congress and several opposition parties. The Congress-led opposition remains at loggerheads with the government over the resignation of senior BJP leaders, and the BJP is standing firm behind its leaders, not ready to give in to the opposition demands. What then is the road ahead? Today we talk about the ongoing logjam in Parliament. And to discuss the same, we have with us in the studios an eminent panel. Please welcome N.K. Singh, Senior Journalist, General Secretary of the Broadcast Editors Association. Welcome to the program, Mr. Singh. Sitting next to him is K.V. Prasad, Associate Editor, The Tribune. Welcome to the program, Mr. Prasad. We are also joined by Renu Mittal, a Bureau Chief with Rashtradoot. Welcome to the program, Ms. Mittal. Before we begin the discussion, let's quickly listen in to what the External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj had to say in Lok Sabha yesterday.
और मैं पूछना चाहती हूं आपसे कि इस तरह की महिला की मदद करना यदि गुनाह है तो मैं कहना चाहती हूं कि ये गुनाह मैंने किया है और अध्यक्ष जी आपको साक्षी मानकर इस सदन में खड़े होकर पूरे राष्ट्र के सामने मैं अपना ये गुनाह कबूल करती हूं और ये सदन इसके लिए मुझे जो सजा देना चाहे मैं वो भुगतने के लिए तैयार हूं.
External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj there making an emotional argument as to why she helped Lalit Modi, his wife being unwell and so on. Mr. Singh, I'd like to begin the discussion with you. What do you make of Sushma Swaraj's statement that she gave in Lok Sabha, an excerpt of which that we just saw? Finally, she was able to present her defense, but many are wondering whether it counts at all because the opposition was missing.
Well, Amandra, logic is the first casualty on the altar of emotion. So it was fully emotion-soaked speech where logic was completely absent. That is true. Her saying that there is a logical fallacy also in her statements if you look into the whole affair. She says, अगर किसी महिला की मदद करना जो कैंसर से पीड़ित हो गुनाह है तो मैंने ये गुनाह किया है. I think it was not the issue of her helping an ailing lady, terminally ill lady. That was not the issue. Issue was she was facilitating in one way or the other, and that is the accusation. I don't go into the details, but that is the accusation. She had to deliberate on that point, whether you facilitated that visa or not, one way or the other. Even if you have said, no, you take your own, I mean, go by your own laws. Even this was not required. But more than that, in India, standards of moral quotient are very high. Notwithstanding the fact that otherwise there is a rank corruption in every section, including political class, but still, as so far as public perception is concerned, in America, American president had to subject himself to a very serious allegation of sexual exploitation of
an intern.
Of an intern. Still, he survived. But in India, this cannot happen. There will be a massive outcry. So standards are different in India because it is traditional society. We cannot countenance any proposition of this nature. So there is an outcry, very obvious. Now take another situation. Had she come to the cabinet and said, no, here my daughter and my husband is on the roll. This is purely an emotive issue. This is purely helping a lady who is terminally ill, and therefore her husband should be allowed to obtain visa. Had that been the case and she recused herself, I think moral standards would have been very high. And she would not have been subjected to this kind of allegations. She could have done that. You know, here is a case wherein I think that help should be given. And next evening, somebody from minister could have held a press conference and said, you know, this is what we are doing. That could have been the right approach. But once she had done it, the nexus that is being established by the political class, well, I don't think the culpability is so high. Sushma is not culpable on the count of corruption or some kind of quid pro quo. But still, in Indian situation, if you have to take care of public perception, then I think you should have taken a different course of action rather than what you had taken.
Okay, Mr. Prasad, how do you weigh in on, or where do you weigh in on this issue?
The fact remains what she had said in Parliament or Lok Sabha yesterday and a couple of days before in Rajya Sabha, it was partly mentioned. She said much of what she had already made public through her Twitter. The fact that she had not put in, so there was, except for the element where she stressed upon the fact that she was helping a person with terminally ill or a serious disease, and all that is known. So that was the only aspect that she stressed upon it. And she was well within her rights to say what she wanted to say. But the fact remains the opposition from the beginning has maintained only one thing, that they don't want to, they're not here to hear that out. They want a resignation. They've taken a stand.
Right.
And that is one reason why, if you look at both the opposition and the government have stuck to their positions right from day one. And that is the reason why you have the stalemate which continues to exist. And what happened after the statement, I don't think there is any material change in situation.
Absolutely.
Things remain the same. They are more of the same. Except the fact that she is now, the External Affairs Minister has made a statement which is now recorded in Parliament.
Right.
It's part of the parliamentary proceedings. That's the only thing I think.
Okay. Renuji, how do you view the External Affairs Minister's statement, given the fact that the opposition was missing from Lok Sabha? Does it count in any way?
No, I think that, you know, what Sushma Swaraj, first I'll just speak a few words about her, the whole episode. I think it's more propriety that the opposition is targeting, because the impropriety of the whole thing of a foreign affairs minister calling up people from a foreign government to facilitate a visa for a guy who's been locked out of the country virtually and who's got cases against him. Now, if the MEA or the foreign secretary or even the PMO had taken a call on it, and if the MEA had been kept in the loop, I think it would have been a different story. The fact that they were totally kept out of the loop, that it was done in a very clandestine manner and not in an official manner. Her phone call has not been recorded on the MEA files. She has decided to say her piece only after the story broke. Why not before? Why not tell the nation that, look, I want to help somebody? And you know, she should in any case have recused herself, because her husband was handling Lalit Modi's case, and her daughter was also involved with the senior lawyer. She was his junior, I believe, who was handling the case. And so, you know, in that situation, it leads to conflict of interest. We have always been saying that those MPs who have conflict of interest should not be on particular standing committees. It's been a demand that a lot of people have been making, because I think that Parliament has to set some standards, government and senior ministers have to set some standards. And why make a statement when the opposition is not there? It has no sanctity, it has no value, it has no validity. You can just say your piece, the ruling class will clap and they will thump the desk, because there's nobody to ask you or interrupt you or, you know, raise questions on whatever it is you're saying. I think that Sushma Swaraj's whole act in being totally unofficial has led to her having these kind of problems. If it had been on record, if it had been official, if it had been done at the government level, it would have looked like a change of policy from what the previous government was doing in targeting Lalit Modi. The fact that none of this was done and that the story first broke in a paper in London, I believe, and after that it was carried by the Indian press, and after which, you know, the whole episode became something on which we're targeting.
This begs the question then, why is the Congress not there in the House? Congress as well as the other opposition parties, they could have heard her out. There could have been a debate on this issue, as the BJP has been saying all along.
Yes, I think, you know, personally from my point of view, I think that you know, all this kind of ruckus and stalling Parliament and not either not saying your piece or not allowing anybody else to say your piece, it doesn't speak well for parliamentary democracy. I think that that parties should come on the floor of the House. They should be they should have allowed her to speak. Why not? You should hear her. After that, you say whatever you want to say. But she is, like Prasad said, she's already said much of what she wanted to say earlier. But still, she would like to have a say on the floor of the House. Whether what she has done is wrong, I don't think it's a criminal act. I think it's more of impropriety than anything else. And I think that if you target the government on the floor of the House and you say that, look, we want to expose what the government is doing or what its ministers are doing, I think it has more impact than this kind of the fact that Parliament is stalled day in and day out, and then MPs have to be suspended, and it leads to a very bad feeling. I think that because the BJP was doing it for the last 10 years, I think that's the excuse that the Congress is taking. So that's no reason for you to do it. And then tomorrow, when you're back in power, the BJP again does it. So where does it end? And in terms of passing legislation, in terms of development, in terms of raising issues concerning the people, whether it's bijli, pani, sadak, or whatever, that means that people's voice is not heard. You are also suspending MPs. So for that 5 days, the MPs, the constituents of those particular who are represented by those MPs have no say in that house. In any case, nobody at the moment has a say. But what I'm saying is that I think that where it's like a roller coaster ride. Where is it going to end? And somebody somewhere has to put a stop to it, because you have to take a more rational view. You have to say that, look, we're also concerned about the country. It's very well for you to sit on dharna. You can do that till 11 o'clock. From 10 o'clock till 11, you can sit on dharna at the Gandhi statue, and then from 11 you can come to the House. You can say your piece, you can interrupt the government, you can put them to task, you can put them on the mat, you can ask them questions, you can demand answers. Why is the Prime Minister not speaking?
But let the House function
but let House, I think that finally at the end of the day, this can't go on just because whole sessions were washed out during the UPA's 10 years is I think no excuse for them to do it again and again. I'm certainly not a votary of Parliament being stalled like this.
Okay, Mr. Prasad, you wanted to come in here?
No, I just wanted to, you asked the question, why was the opposition not there? They were simply not there because the Congress was suspended.
Not all of them were suspended.
No, Congress, 25 MPs, and in protest, others have joined. So it was a democratic protest that lost. That is the reason why the opposition was not inside the House at that point of time.
Mr. Singh, but what we are witnessing is also, a complete breakdown of government opposition interaction or a relationship. I have spoken to members of Parliament on this issue many a times before, and they all seem convinced that if a back channel were to be evolved, this logjam can be broken. But unfortunately, it seems the back channel does not exist at the moment.
Amanda, let us delve deep into the reason behind this logjam. If you have force in your argument, if you have force in the issue that you are raising, then you should have, Parliament is the best forum. You should have come to Parliament. There are two ways of raising protest. In any democracy, democracy hinges on 4 fundamentals. That one is majority rule. Number 2, recognition of minority rights. Third, constitutional government. And fourth and most important is governance by discussion. That precisely is the reason why we have processes, institutions of interaction between opposition and the Treasury bench in central legislature or state legislatures. Here we have question hour, 0 hour, no confidence motion, all these things. These are the processes through which you ventilate your issues. You should have come to Parliament. Otherwise, the second option was that go to streets, raise public voice, develop collective consciousness against the issue, on the issue. But instead, either you do this or you come to Parliament, give a very logically coherent argument, and then convince the masses. That is how this process goes. But here, opposition is neither going to Parliament nor going to people, and they are just blocking the Parliament proceedings. So that is unthinkable in any mature democracy. You have never come across this situation in British Parliament. The Westminster system, from which we have derived this, which is the mother of all parliaments.
Right.
You have taken a cue from there. But you didn't do that. Now, if you have force in your argument, you should have come to Parliament, you should have raised the issue on the floor of the House, which you never did. So that is where government, where opposition is lacking. And now people have even started developing a rancor for this kind of attitude.
Right.
They are not they are not feeling that there is something very serious and the opposition is doing a good job. So that is where I think the problem lies. If you have to raise an issue, raise it on the floor of the House or go to streets. Don't block the Parliament proceedings.
Mr. Prasad, but the Congress argues that the precedent of disruptions was set by the BJP. Although it doesn't justify it.
Also said just now.
Right, but they recall the statements made by Sushma Swaraj and Arun Jaitley in the past, and how the entire politics of disruption began from the year 2004, ever since the BJP was in the opposition. What would you say?
No, I think it goes even beyond that. It was actually somewhere in the 80s when it all began, I think, when the Before scandal broke through, and then the protests. We remember the Sukhram episode. Again, there was a lot of problem. We also remember the JPC's demand. Again, we had this issue. So time and again, there have been disruptions, stalling of Parliament, adjournments, washouts. All these have been witnesses. It's not good or bad. That's a different issue. There's a whole debate going on in the country. Some people calling the efficacy of Parliament and the working system itself is people are questioning that, more so because of what Mr. N.K. Singh also mentioned.
Right.
That is but every political party has taken a particular role or stand. For instance, I remember in 2004, there was a particular instance when the UPA government had come to power and the BJP-led NDA also kept away from the House for various reasons, adjourning the houses. The budget-making process was affected, and at one point of time, the NDA-led, BJP-led NDA went to the Prime Minister in his office in the chamber in Parliament to hand over a list of demands which they think should be part of the budget. And the Prime Minister told them, I'm not going to take your demands here. Please come to the House. That's the place where the budget has to be debated. It didn't happen. And I remember for maybe 2 to 3 years, the budgets were passed without any discussion. Thousands of crores of taxpayers' money just went. And of course, the Parliament committees did their jobs. So there have been issues over a period of time. And I'm sure this is a debate that continues. This attitude, some people compare it to the filibustering in America, but that's totally different.
Right.
That's a different concept and a different process.
All right, but as a figure says, the cost of running Parliament comes around to be 29,000 rupees per minute, and crores of rupees, it seems, are going down the drain or down the well, as some have pointed out. On that note, we take a break in the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Insight. We are talking about the ongoing logjam in Parliament. Ms. Mittal, I'll continue with you. Although normalcy seems to have returned to Lok Sabha with the Speaker not ready to adjourn the House, Rajya Sabha continues to be disrupted. But many are asking as to how much of this disruption is actually about ensuring accountability, and when does this cross the line and become just about disruption?
I think that, what has really aggravated the situation in this case is probably the attitude of the government. What the opposition parties are saying is that, there has been no attempt to reach out to them. The fact that the Prime Minister has been totally silent on the issue of Sushma Swaraj and the two chief ministers, the issues that have been raised by the Congress party and the other opposition parties. So they're saying that if the Prime Minister had made an attempt to sort of, say his piece and what his feelings are about it, well, if there had been, there of course has been I think all party meeting was convened, but even that, they said was done with the wrong attitude. And they said that there's no serious attempt to reach out to them and to sort of discuss the issue and to give some assurances. Of course, you know, in the middle of the parliament session, the Prime Minister can't remove the ministers or the chief ministers, because it looks as though it's been done on the demand of the opposition, and then they score a major victory. So for any government, that certainly that line of action is not feasible or possible. I think that they should have been done before the parliament, or maybe it will be done later. Also, I think at the back of the government's mind is the issue of the oncoming Bihar elections and how that is going to impact whatever happens in the government, because the BJP has big stakes there in Bihar, and it would like to win after the debacle in Delhi. It would probably like to score a victory in Bihar and to say that, look, they're still intact as a party which came to power with a lot of promises to the people, which I think unfortunately many of them have just remained promises and have not been fulfilled. So in that wider context, the opposition would like to score a victory to show that, look, you brought us to 44 seats on the issue of corruption, and now look at you, you're not even talking about it. You know, your repeatedly senior ministers are coming to the house and saying there's no question of removing anybody, any minister from the government or any chief minister. Whoever is there will remain. So what then happens to the issue of accountability, to responsibility? So I think that the attitude of the government has also contributed to the fact that that there is this logjam and this impasse in parliament, and the Rajya Sabha, because they have a majority in the Rajya Sabha, and because they feel that they can block the house, they're doing it. In the Lok Sabha, the ruling party has a majority, so they're continuing the house as they think fit. I think in that situation, with no dialogue taking place, this situation has got aggravated. Like I mentioned earlier, I am not a votary of stalling parliament as has been happening for the last so many years. But I think that, you know, both sides have to take some of the blame. What the Congress is now quoting is what a senior BJP leader had said, that resign first and debate later. So when Sonia Gandhi uses the same words, it's like tit for tat. So you did it to us, so we are doing it to you now. I like I said, where does it end? So I think that both parties from now and in the future have to take a look at not just scoring brownie points in the present context, but also how this impacts them in the future, because one or the other will be the opposition and one will be the ruling party. It's not going to go on forever. And I think in that context, they have to look at it with a little more maturity, a little more far-sightedness, and a little more thought of how people are also looking at it, you know. I think that, you know, US has a tradition of doing surveys at the drop of a hat of how such an action is impacting the people. Maybe political parties should also go and do their little surveys and find out, are the people liking all this? I mean, is it being appreciated? And is it the right thing to do in that context? So I think that both sides are to blame, and I think both should look at themselves and find out what is the best way out in this scenario. Because okay, this session will end next week. You know, on Monday, even the suspended MPs will come back, the opposition parties will come back. So then again, what? They're going to come back with placards? They're going to come back with the slogans? So do they get suspended again? Or does the House get adjourned again? And what about the bills that have been passed in the Lok Sabha? Certainly they're not going to be passed in the Rajya Sabha, because the ruling party is not in the position to do it. So then how does it help? And you know, then we move on to the winter session. So unless between now and then some action is taken, or some attempt is made to resolve the issues that have been raised, do we have a repeat of the same situation? These are all questions that are being asked.
Mr. Prasad. Mr. Prasad, the Congress is being defiant. We've seen Congress MPs displaying placards and so on in the House and eventually getting suspended for that. But what about the government? As Ms. Mittal pointed out, should the government make an attempt to reach out to the opposition and try and placate them, or find some sort of, you know, modus vivendi to end this deadlock and get on with its reform agenda?
It's always understood in parliamentary system that it is the government which is has to run the house. The primary responsibility is because the government has its own business to conduct, and it wants a smooth conduct of functioning of parliament. So the initiative should always be coming from the government side, is the way people look at it, and that has been the practice in the past. Whenever there has been issues, where there has been a stalemate or there has been a logjam or whatever you prefer to call it, it is always the ruling dispensation which takes the lead in trying to sort out the issues, discuss and find out what are the meeting ground, and then try and work a way out. And there have been times very, very ticklish issues, very, very ticklish matters have been sorted out by debate and discussions. In fact, the President, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, has been in the last 3 years been saying this thing that there's only room for 3 Ds and not the 4th D, that is disruption. He's been telling this to every state legislature and parliament whenever it matters. And he being one of the longest serving parliamentarians, so he has his own experience the way the thing is. But then, as I said, political parties take a position, and right from beginning this session was clear that it is not going to move,
Right.
because both BJP-led government, NDA, and the Congress in opposition have dug in the trenches, and they are sitting there and they say that's it, there is no movement forward,
Right.
and that's where it is. So there's I mean, like somebody said, what is sauce for the goose is also sauce for the gander. So payback time from Congress, probably that's what they're doing.
Mr. Singh, you know, with both sides unrelenting, the Congress has made up its mind that it's not going to give in, not going to let the House function. The BJP has rallied behind its leaders. What can we expect then? Because it's foolhardy to expect the Prime Minister to ask for the resignation of a minister just ahead of Bihar elections.
No, even otherwise, resignation means accepting the guilt. Now, what is the problem? Renu had very rightly put this in perspective, saying that it was a case of propriety. In cases of propriety, you cannot all of a sudden demand resignation. Reason? You cannot liken the two situations. You cannot equate it with previous situations in Congress government where some government agency, one or the other, had given some, established the culpability through charge sheet or some investigation. Here, there is no investigation. It is conjecture and
Right.
certain amount of case of moral turpitude, wherein you have not informed the cabinet and you did something which was orally or in writing, that too in a very casual manner. So it is a case of propriety, wherein you cannot all of a sudden demand resignation. Let this issue be debated, and still if you find that there is a culpability which the government is not accepting, then you can demand that and then disrupt the House, and that too should be a token gesture so that people may know about what exactly the issue is. Otherwise, demanding resignations means forcing them to accept the guilt,
Right.
which naturally no government will do at this stage unless there is a case, there is an investigation, there is a very tangible result out of that. So that is one thing. Second, your demand. Demanding chief minister's resignation. Now take a case of UP. Can you demand same case of corruption? Can you demand resignation from a party which is not your party, which is not the party which is ruling in the state government? So how can you demand resignation of a chief minister? That can be only through the process of president rule under article provided for that. Therefore, in the Call and Shakdar, I was reading called the Call and Shakdar, which is Bible of parliamentary proceedings. On page number 458, very categorically it said ki you can raise the issue of national importance, irrespective of whether it is state pertaining to state government or central government or municipality. If it has a vital connotation, vital in magnitude, then you might as well take this up on the floor of the House in Parliament. You can do that. But demanding resignation, how can it be effectuated? Say, for example, the union government accepts it. Okay, I take your demand, I will seek resignation. And suppose it is a case of UP government. Even if it is a case of Madhya Pradesh government or Rajasthan government, how can you force a chief minister to resign unless you take recourse to 356?
Okay.
You can't do that. Therefore, this is not the process through which you raise demand. Means your demand is out of rank political vendetta, which should not have been there in a maturing democracy. 65 years we have practiced democracy. That precisely was the reason most of the Britishers those days used to say, no, 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 please, for God's sake, don't go for parliamentary democracy in your country. Your country is, I mean, too immature at this stage. Even we fail. After 800 years of parliamentary practices, it started through Magna Carta in 1212, 1215, and still British Parliament fails. That was his admission. So this most of the Britishers analysts suggested that no, you don't take up don't take the same kind of governance which we have been practicing, because you will fail. And this seems to be now the case, that the maturity which was supposed to be the political entities is not to be found now.
And the point that was made earlier, can the government reach out in such a scenario?
Government should. I mean, that is incumbent, as Prasad had said. It is primary responsibility of the government treasury bench to reach out to the opposition and say, you know, these are the important issues. But even for opposition, it is equally important that opposition should also hold out olive branch, saying that no, I have an issue. I will debate it on the floor of the House, and I will make you wilt. I will make you so that at least I'll tell you to the masses that this is what the issue is, and that is how we are proceeding in this matter. So it was equally incumbent on the opposition to reach out to the treasury bench, saying no, we have some issues and we want to debate it. That should have been the spirit, which I think is completely wanting.
And Ms. Mittal, how do you view the position taken up by the Congress party? Do you think it's sustainable in the long run? Do you think, or you think, you know, it's impossible to climb down from the position that they've taken?
I think that in the current session it will be difficult for them to climb down, but I think overall ultimately there will be some kind of a give and take probably with the government, some discussion. I think the Congress will take the issue to the streets or to the states or wherever they think that they can get the maximum benefits, and I think it's difficult to sustain it in the long run, because it's not something that, you know, you can with so few MPs and, you know, over a period of time. Opposition parties of course are there now with them, but if the opposition parties are not there with them, can the Congress with just these few MPs sort of you know, carry on with this kind of an attitude? I think it's not possible. I think that there will be there will be a change in the situation. But I don't agree with some of the points that N.K. Singh has raised. I think that, you know, propriety is a very important issue, morality is a very important issue. We remember Madhavrao Scindia as railway minister resigning because there was an accident. Certainly he was not responsible for the accident, but certainly he took responsibility and resigned. So you can't say that, you know, it's a sign that you're guilty. I think that, you know, in morality also has to play an important part in politics, and you can't sort of come to the House and say that no minister will be changed. We will not take any action. We will not allow, we will not succumb to any of what you're saying. So I think that the attitude is very important. Half the problems can be solved with a different attitude. Half the problems can be resolved, and I think that both sides will have to little bit give and take. So I think that this kind of it's like the, you know, the arrogance of the Congress party brought them to 44 seats. So I think that the similar arrogance is now being displayed by the ruling party, that no, we will not talk, we will not discuss, you do what you like, you know, we will resort to suspensions. I think that this is not the way that a parliamentary democracy really, and it's not the way that a house can run. You can throw out everybody and run the house. But certainly, is that what we are looking for?
Mr. Prasad, so, a quick word from you on that. Is the government being stubborn here?
Well, let me tell you, I don't know, call it stubborn. They have the standpoint, they're sticking to it. Now, it depends on your viewpoint. Are they being stubborn? Are they being arrogant? Are they, you know, they have their viewpoint. There's a political call they have taken, so they're following that line. Congress has taken a stand based on the political calculation it has made. So it's for political parties to do their own calculations. But I would also like to recall and remember that two things. Two joint parliamentary committees were given only when 2 sessions were lost. And this is both when the NDA was in power it happened, and when the UPA was in power it happened. And the same stalling tactics led when we had a JPC on on stock scam when Mr. Vajpayee was in power, and we had the same stalling tactics which led to a JPC
on the 2G
on the 2G scam.
All right, on that note, it's time for us to take a break. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Insight. We are talking about the ongoing logjam in Parliament and what can we expect in the days to come. Mr. Singh, I'll continue with you. A point that Ms. Mittal raised earlier in the program, how the Congress strategy does not seem very sustainable in the long run. Do you think there can be an exit strategy that can still be found?
No, see, even Congress cannot back down now. They have come to such a situation from where they cannot go back. Same is the case with the government. Government cannot accept the demand. Bihar elections are around the corner. So both are on their stated position. Politically, it will not be prudent for them to take a reverse position. But the fact is that Congress will have to eventually give up this demand, because this cannot sustain. What Renu was saying, she had a different opinion, but the fact is moral reaction on moral counts cannot be invoked per force. You cannot force somebody to invoke her morality, his morality, and then say that is the problem. So what happens? Advani resigned. It was not because of parliament debate. He did it on his own. The moment Sushma Swaraj walked into his office that day, she said, no, there is a charge sheet against you. I just came to know, my husband has told me. That is what this is in Advani's book. So the moment he came to know, next half an hour he tried to ferret out the information, exact information, and the moment he got it, that CBI has a case against him, he announced at 12:30, he said, no, I am going to resign. I will not come to parliament unless I am completely absorbed of this charge. Now, this is not by force invoked. This is self-propelled kind of exercise. So he did that. Sushma could have done that. That is different. But here the question is that these moral cases of moral impropriety or something, that you cannot force her to resign. Now, you raise public outcry, you raise public opinion on that. If public opinion is so overbearing, that will force the minister or the prime minister to take action. Unless you do that, it is infructuous. So therefore, Congress will have to go to masses. And why on this issue only? You have several, you have recently, you have new statistics on poverty, you have statistics on a hell of a lot of things. So why don't you raise those issues and say the government must do this or that? You have curtailed, you have slashed funds on the health sector, you have slashed fund in the education. So government, the opposition party, particularly Congress, could have raised these issues on the floor of the house. Vital issues are there. Bihar elections are there, and you could have raised several issues on that.
Right.
But instead of that, you have just picked up one issue, and on that, you have dragged, I mean, you have completely washed out entire session.
Right.
So that, I think, is politically not very prudent exercise that Congress has resorted to.
And what will be, the strategy of the government in the upper house? Do you think, by letting the house function, not letting, the Congress MPs participate and so on?
Another very, very important question. What will be the course of action from the government side in the upper house?
Right.
See, yesterday, Congress has issued 3-line whip, meaning thereby that Congress will not allow any bill to be passed, even if they want, because they are boycotting the parliament, Congress. So the government, the apprehension was that government all of a sudden will bring a legislation and get it passed in the absence of the Congress MPs. Foreseeing that, a 3-line whip has been issued that no, this is the course of action that you have to take.
Right.
Meaning thereby that Congress is equally firm on that, it will not allow any bill to be passed. That being the situation, that is why I say, why parliament people are, particularly legislators are losing the interest of debate. One basic reason is this anti-defection law, through which you have 3-line whip, and the members are forced to conduct in a particular direction.
Right.
That is a bane of this free democracy. I think anti-defection law should go, because as long as it stands, your free opinion and influencing other parliamentarians on the basis of your opinion, force of your opinion, will not work. Because then you have a 3-line whip, you have to act the way that whip wants you to. That is one reason why Parliament has lost the force of debate. India, I know how India got independence. It was only because of force in the House of Lords. It was not getting passed, but all of a sudden a member rose and he gave an emotion-soaked speech. That posterity will not absolve of the guilt that you are going to commit today if you are not allowing India independence. And that is how entire conservatives, notwithstanding Churchill's reluctance, voted for the India Independence Bill. So this is the force of debate, and if you can convince the voters, anti-defection law should not be there. Otherwise, it regulates, it forces an MP to work in a particular fashion. So that is where I think Rajya Sabha, now Congress has taken a stand that it will not allow any bill to be passed.
Right. Mr. Prasad, what can we expect in the upper house? The Congress has the numbers there, and what then will be its bearing on the government's reform agenda?
Well, I think as of now, the government's biggest reform bill was the GST,
right,
which of course doesn't seem coming to light anytime now. At least doesn't look, because there's still a lot many work to do. The land bill, which was the other bill, the select committee has to has to present its report. The joint committee, which is going into it, I think by 7th of August. That's today is the deadline. We don't know what exactly how it will go forward there. So this is two issues right now, with just 3 more days of Parliament left next week.
Right.
The window is pretty narrow for government to really push any of its legislative agenda, which would indicate the reform process. How the land bill will emerge, we don't know yet, because there are reports that some changes are being contemplated in the land bill. So all that be as it is. The Congress strategy is very clear, as Mr. N.K. Singh enunciated, but of course you must remember, prior to that, there was a report yesterday, and today many papers have published it, that 30 members of the ruling from the ruling benches had requested the chair for that they want the House to run and invoke some kind of a rule to kind of. Now that again is a different way of looking at it. How do you do it? So again, are you going to enact the same form method in which you've done in? So we don't know. And remember, we had an issue in the passage of the Women's Reservation Bill, which became a huge political and also a debatable issue when members were physically evicted by marshals. We were witness to that. And subsequent to it, even though the government was the same, it could not muster enough strength to bring it in Lok Sabha. And the bill lapsed. So you see, there are, for every action there has to be, you may do it in a particular manner. At that point of time, you may think. The golden adage, which already talks in parliamentary democracy, is opposition can have its say, the government will have its way. Now, that's for the government to find out how it moves forward.
Okay, Ms. Mittal, how will the government have its way in the upper house, where it doesn't have the numbers?
Some of the thinking of certain sections of the government is a plan B. The plan B relates to the fact that turn most of the bills into money bills. So the Lok Sabha then passes the bill because the ruling party has a majority there, and they don't have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. So the money bill doesn't need to be passed by the Rajya Sabha. It needs to be only. And how do you decide what's a money bill? That authority rests solely with the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. So the Lok Sabha Speaker decides it's a money bill. No, it's a total miscarriage of parliamentary. You see, there was an instance last time when a bill became a money bill, when the opposition members objected to it. So the leader of the House stood up in the Rajya Sabha and he said, no, the Lok Sabha Speaker has taken a decision, it's a money bill, and I don't think that you have a locus standi to stand up and argue about it. So that settled the matter. So that's one way of moving forward. You turn most bills into money bills. You can't do it with the GST because it's a constitution amendment bill. So for that you need to have different tactics for that. And I think that, you know, the chairman of the Rajya Sabha is very clear. He doesn't want any bills passed in the din and in the confusion and in the noise. So he wants the House to be in order when the bills are passed. Since that is not happening, I don't think that the second option is really going to work, of passing the bills, you know, in that situation. So I think that it's a very, either you put democracy on the back burner and you find new ways and new rules to pass bills, and in the stated position I think it looks very difficult unless there is a change and the ruling party gets a majority in the Rajya Sabha, which may happen 2 years or 2 or 3 years down the line, but certainly not going to happen now. And you know, in that situation the best recourse is dialogue, and I think that the chapter that NK Singh wants to open of removing the anti-defection law may have very, very far-sighted consequences, where we Ayaram Gayaram culture, what we have been witnessing earlier before the anti-defection law was there, may once again come back into force. So I think that we need to think very carefully before we advocate that maybe, you know, for short-term gains, I don't think that, because I don't think that we are mature enough to be able to handle a conscience vote or conscious situations in
all right,
this
but
kind
as
of a
you
thing,
said,
you know?
dialogue is the only way out. Sadly, what we're witnessing is a situation of politics first and governance later. On that note, it's time for me to wrap up this discussion here. I'd like to thank all my guests for coming to the studios. It was a pleasure having you here. That's it for now in this edition of Insight. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.